It's pretty common to hear, don't seek validation from women. Now, there's a sense in which this is true. A man who's seeking validation from a woman is trying to prove his self-worth through her approval of him. He's trying to validate who he is as a person through the eyes of another. He'll be motivated to make her feel impressed by him. He'll do favors for her. He'll run errands for her. He'll do what he needs to do to earn her approval, thinking that that's going to make him to prove to himself that he is in fact a lovable, good person. And this is absolutely an unhealthy way of functioning. It's true that you should not seek to validate who you are as a person in the eyes of another, a woman or otherwise. But this phrase is now being used more broadly than just don't seek validation from women. It's being used to mean more along the lines of don't ever open up to women. Don't ever try and connect with women. Don't ever seek visibility from women. Now, we've been getting a lot of advice from many different types of men out there on the internet. The pseudo-masculinity chads, the alpha bros, and the stoic types, all saying that a real man doesn't open up to women. A strong masculine man keeps his thoughts and feelings locked up tight. Because if you ever open up emotionally, that's just inviting pain, and she'll use what you give her against you. They don't seem to mention why you would want to be with a woman who would use your emotions against you to begin with, but whatever. But here's the thing. There's a huge difference between someone who is motivated by validation, basically a people pleaser, and someone who is secure in who they are and genuinely wants a real connection, a real relationship. But those who say, I don't need validation from others, are blurring this distinction. The danger here is that it makes you feel ashamed and reticent to open up and actually connect with people, like you're a pansy for wanting an actual connection with someone. And it ends up making you wall yourself up to make you feel like you're just inviting pain and danger if you actually open yourself up, that everyone else out there in the world, especially women, are just poised, ready to drive the knife in. And that means that you keep yourself walled up and on guard all the time. And you're never at ease. You're never comfortable with the people you're actually in a relationship with. You'll never fully trust them. You'll never fully feel comfortable around them. You'll never feel like you're safe and comfortable and at home with someone you're trying to build a relationship with. As if being open and honest makes you weak. Now, the real choice that you have is between validation and visibility. You can either seek validation from other people and try to make yourself feel like you're worth something, you're lovable or you're smart or capable or whatever through the eyes of others. Or you can be secure in who you are, know what you want, be open and honest, and share your life with someone else who sees and likes the things that you are. Now, I've talked about visibility a couple of times on this channel, but what I haven't mentioned is a really unique value to visibility, which most people don't actually talk about. And I think it really highlights why this attitude of I don't need validation from anyone mindset, or really what they're saying is I don't need anybody, I don't need to connect with anybody. Why that's really self-destructive. Firstly, just to go over what visibility is real quick, it's essentially having your assessments or your feelings confirmed or shared by another, like telling a joke and your friend laughs at it. What's funny is the people who say, I don't need validation or visibility from anybody, I don't need relationships, I don't think that if they told a joke to one of their friends and their friends didn't laugh at it or maybe even condemned them for that joke, called them racist for that joke, I doubt that person wouldn't care. I doubt they would respond with just an apathetic face. I think they would definitely care. They would probably try to argue with them about, oh no, I'm not, or oh no, that joke isn't racist, or they would laugh at their response, or they would, feel kind of rejected and hurt. Whether they would admit it or not isn't really the point. They would feel that way. And that's because of the value that nobody really talks about with visibility, which is that it's in a way our only way of making our own sense of self objective. It's basically our only way of seeing our own sense of self in action. Now, let me explain. When it comes to observing an object, something outside of ourselves, it's tangible, it's outside of ourselves. We can see it in relation to everything else in the universe. We can gain a pretty good sense of what things are and how they work and feel like we're being objective about it because it's outside of ourselves. It's a tangible thing independent of us and independent of everything else that we can perceive. Now, without getting into too much detail about that, when it comes to ourselves, though, about our own evaluations of ourselves, we can't do that. It's not outside of ourselves. It's not independent of our own, assessments, of our own evaluations, because part of our self, of our sense of self, is our own evaluation. So you can't really gain objectivity about your sense of self independently of your sense of self all by yourself. We can get to know ourselves and know what it is we want and how we feel and all that kind of stuff, sure, certainly. But the only way that we get feedback or any kind of causal response to who we are and to what we actually are, who we actually are as people, is by interacting with other people and other things in the universe. And the best way is by interacting with other people. Now, basically what it means to be objective about who you are is that your sense of self is actually grounded in something real, that you can, it's not just made up, it's not just in your head, like, oh yes, I'm a genius. No, you're a genius, how do you know this? Well, just because I'm brilliant, I'm amazing. That's just something you've made up. Now, to give you an example of someone who is out of touch, who doesn't have an objective sense of self, is, the kind of guy who doesn't really go out much. He doesn't have very many friends. He's very socially awkward. Maybe the only social time he gets is going and playing his favorite tabletop war game on Thursdays. And when he does go out and he does interact with other people, he's very awkward. And one of the reasons why he's so awkward is because he doesn't know that he comes across as very awkward. His jokes don't really land because he's the only one who's heard them, but he thinks his jokes are funny. He stinks, but that's because he's gotten used to his own smell and he doesn't think he smells bad. His conversations suck because all he talks about are the things that he's interested in. But he thinks that he's interesting because all he talks about is what he's interested in. In a word, this guy is weird. And why he's weird is because he's out of touch with himself. His sense of self isn't objective. It's not grounded in the actual facts. Because again, it's hard to see ourselves as we really are when we have nothing to go off of except our own perspective. You see, when we get out into the world and we start interacting with other people, what we're getting is a response to who we actually are. When we go and tell a joke and no one laughs, when we go out and people are, holding their noses and they don't want to be around us and they say, God damn, take a bath. When we go out and having conversations with people and they're just sort of dully nodding their heads,
yeah, fine, yeah,
and not really wanting to engage with us, not talking with us, they're not eager to have a conversation with us. This is all good feedback about who we really are. Because of course, what we think of ourselves isn't directly, that's not a direct correlation with who we really are. And this is the value of visibility that many people don't really talk about, is that we are gaining perspective of who we are by looking at the responses from everyone else to us, to who we are as a person, by what it is that we're doing, what it is that we're saying, how we're behaving, how we present ourselves. All the aspects of who we are. We're seeing the feedback as it's coming in. And the value there is, it's one of the greatest ways, and arguably the only way, to truly know yourself, to truly know who you are as a person. And it's one of the best catalysts for self-improvement too. You discover what your strengths and your weaknesses are and where you need to improve. Now, I do quickly want to say that just because someone reacts negatively to you doesn't necessarily mean that they're right. I just want to make that clear. But the point is that you are getting feedback. Because if someone's wrong, if you tell a joke and they're like, hey, that's racist or whatever, and you think, no, it wasn't. I'm not racist. That joke wasn't racist. You like, that guy's wrong. But that's still feedback. You're still getting that affirmation of yourself. Now let me close this point off with a quote from our boy, Nathaniel Brandon. The desire for visibility is the desire for a form of objectivity. I cannot perceive myself. I cannot perceive my person objectively, only internally, from a perspective that is uniquely private. But if your responses make sense in terms of my internal perceptions, you become a mirror, allowing me the experience of objectivity about my person. I see myself reflected in your appropriate responses. Now, when it comes to romantic relationships, we gain some of the deepest, most intimate levels of visibility. We feel seen, not just by her, but by ourselves. We see parts of ourselves we otherwise couldn't see, and we grow in ways we couldn't otherwise grow. And why visibility feels so good, why it feels so great to know that you're in a relationship with a woman who really understands who you are and likes it, is that affirmation of you thinking that you are good and that you are worth loving. And that is what that feeling is someone saying, yes, you are good and you are worth loving. And that brings us back to the difference between validation and visibility. True visibility requires a sense of self. A true relationship requires that you have a self. Because if you didn't have a self, there would be nothing to see. There would be no part of you there for someone else to say, yeah, you are great. Because they would look inside of you and just say, like, you need to grow. You need to get out there and live life. And this is why someone who is seeking validation will always be unsatisfied, is because they're looking for a sense of self that they don't have externally. They're looking for someone else to tell them, yes, you really are. Oh, you're such a good boyfriend. You're so attentive and empathetic and loving. Oh, you're so great. But really all they're doing is performing deeds for, the girlfriend. You going and getting coffee in the morning and being sure that he cleans up everything and making dinner and doing this, that, and the other. That's just performing deeds in order to get that sense of having a self without actually having a self. And that kind of person will never feel loved, not really, which is why he has to keep performing those deeds. It's, that's the only moment that he'll get that feeling. It won't satiate anything because there is nothing there for him to feel good about, to feel seen. And the people out there who are saying, don't be emotionally open with women, don't go looking for validation from them, which is really a sneaky way of just saying, don't open up, don't go looking for genuine connection, is really what they mean. What that advice is doing for you is basically destroying and closing off the value that I just talked about, that actually gaining a sense of objectivity about yourself, and not to mention genuine connection with someone and feeling loved and, connected. They destroy the meaning of visibility, of true, actual connection by conflating the kind of guys out there who are just after validation with, a genuine, actual relationship. And I think the real irony here is that the people who say, I don't really need anybody, or don't ever be vulnerable with a woman, I think why they say this is because they really don't have a sense of self, and thus don't see the reason for a legitimate connection with a woman. They don't really see any value there for visibility at all. It really is said quite a lot these days that you shouldn't need anyone for anything. And I think one of the biggest reasons for men to do this is you'll hear them say that if you open up to a woman, you're just inviting pain. And you hear from the Stoics who say, well, here are the top 10 ways to never feel disappointment, or never let rejection hurt you, or never feel emotional pain. And I think people try to pass off this idea of not needing anyone, never allowing yourself to feel pain, never allowing yourself to be vulnerable. They try to pass this off as strength. But really, it's weakness to say that you'll never open up out of fear that someone might hurt you. I mean, that's pathetic. I mean, the strong thing to do is to be yourself, be open and honest, and if someone tries to hurt you or use that against you, say, screw you, I deserve better, and leave that person. Don't be around them. The strong thing to do is to handle the difficulties of life rather than just avoid them. It's absolutely ridiculous that so many people are trying to pass off hiding from relationships because there's a chance that they might get hurt as strength. Don't fall for the ridiculous promise that these faux masculinity bros and stoics try to sell you on, that you can live a life where you don't get hurt or you're never vulnerable to emotional pain. It's a lie. The only way that you can be safe from emotional pain, disappointment, regret, rejection, loneliness, failure is to be dead. Real strength of character comes from being able to handle the difficulties of life, to be able to handle negative emotions and negative events in a healthy and productive way, and not to let the negatives stop you from going after the positives. For example, a lot of what I talk about on this channel is about going after women to go out and get into the dating world, which, yeah, you do not have to tell me. I'm well aware of how horrible it is, of how horrible a lot of the women out there are. I am fully aware. But do not let that stop you. If you want a woman in your life, a good one, don't let all the psychos keep you from her. Don't let feminism beat you down and keep you in the shadows and keep you alone and sad and disappointed that you don't actually have a romantic relationship. Don't stop going after the things that you really want in life. That's real strength, not letting the negatives hold you back. Well, I hope you found this video interesting. Sorry for the lighting. I know it's kind of strange, but it's late and I didn't really know how to fix it. So if you found it interesting, drop a like, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.
All these promises that we make and we break, why is it, do you think, that people get married?
Passion.
No.
It's interesting, because I would have taken you for a romantic. Why then?
Because we need a witness to our lives. There's 1 billion people on the planet. I mean, what does any one life really mean? But in a marriage, you're promising to care about everything. The good things, the bad things, the terrible things, the mundane things. All of it, all the time, every day. You're saying your life will not go unnoticed because I will notice it. Your life will not go unwitnessed because I will be your witness.